Hey guys, Julian here, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to make deep liquid drum and bass. I recently made another video like this, and you guys really liked it, so today I'm going to be going even more in depth into some different things with like drum programming and synths and all that, and how to just give you guys some stuff that I haven't given you yet. So, as usual, you can get the full project file and samples and MIDI presets. Everything from this video is available right at the top of the description, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. And yeah, here we go. So, this loop here in the intro. We're at 172 BPM, a little bit slower than a lot of other drum and bass tracks, but I've noticed a lot of tracks in this style with this more chill, deep vibe tend to go here. I think you can get a deeper sound because even if it's only like 2 or 3 or 4 BPM slower than another track, it's gonna like subconsciously give people that feel that there's something a little bit deeper going on here. So, it's just kind of a small detail to add to it. The first sound we have is the pad, which sounds like this. As you can see, these are the notes that this is playing. It's really simple. It's following the bass line. So what's happening here is basically the chord progression is changing E minor, G major, C major. And then I'm just having it follow that. So we have like a very straightforward E minor chord, root note, minor third, fifth. Then here, I just dropped out the E just to make it a bit smoother. And then here is a regular C major chord, except I've taken that middle note, the major third, the E, and put it up an octave. And you can hear it's kind of like making this play off of itself a little bit more, because if you listen, it's like kind of walking up the scale now when you hear that high E versus if it was just to go down. It's not quite as cool sounding. For the sound with this one, it's made with analog. So this is just a simple saw wave pad. You can see it's just detuned a little bit with this first oscillator, and then it's all going into this low pass filter. So this is the main thing with this. I'm just trying to create this really, really deep pad that's going to sit nicely over the bass, because in this track we have a respace. But you can hear like this on its own, like we turn off the pad in the track. It feels a bit empty. But then when you hear when I turn on this pad, like, the pad on its own isn't meant to be like this big, huge thing. It's just meant to be this deep, kind of smoother pad that's going to add to what the bass line is doing. So yeah, just kind of like filtering that back is really nice there. Then we just have a bit of chorus, spreading the sound out. We have a bit of reverb as well, giving it the space, as you would imagine we need for a pad sound. Then I have a saturator just to make it a little bit fatter and a little bit warmer. Even with these ambient sounds, you still want them to be as fat and as full as possible. Then we have a high-pass filter just to cut out the low end. And then finally I have a compressor side-chaining it just a little bit to the kick to kind of make everything fit into the groove a bit more. And that's it for the pad. After that we have this melody, which sounds like this. So what's going on here? I'll turn off these effects so you can hear it. It's just playing this. So what happened here was I actually didn't even play this in the key. What happened was I just played in this thing. Like I was just kind of fumbling around with like just hitting a few different notes on the keyboard. I'm pretty sure I was in the key of C minor. Just doing stuff like that. Like all the notes I'm playing right now, they're all in the same key, but I was kind of just like fumbling around with playing them like that. And then what I did was I recorded that in, and then I just moved it down to be in E minor. So since we're in E minor, you can see like we have F sharp, the 9th, G, the minor 3rd, B, which would be the 5th. We have an E up here, so we actually do have the root note. And then we just have another G minor 3rd up there. So again, all notes that are in this chord and in this scale that are pretty simple. But then it's just kind of playing this like repetitive like bloop, bloop, bloop. It's almost more about the rhythm of it, how it's like kind of breathing like that. You play up high and then it goes down low. And then when you put that through all these different effects here, you get this nice kind of like cool droning melody that's going to play over the background. And this works really well because you have this staying in the same place while the chord progression is changing, which is a really nice dynamic for drum and bass, because obviously, you know, we're not going to have like a long like melody like you would have in a pop song where, you know, it's going to be trying to do a bunch of different notes, but you can just have something sort of droning and creating this cool vibe. And then the chords are the thing that's moving slowly underneath that to give it motion. So yeah, for the sound with this one, it's just a simple FM sound. It's just a sine wave and then another sine wave here. You can see I've got these set like this. The sine wave, the first one is at -5, and then, or at 0.5 I should say. And then the second one is at 4 on the chorus pitch. I've got the fine tune turned up a little. I have this being low pass as well. Here's without that. So you can hear the same deal as the pad, you know, just kind of cutting it so it'll just be kind of deep and more sine wavy while still having a little bit more texture. And then I have this LFO here. This is just on the filter, cutoff, and the volume of oscillator B. So just kind of giving it some movement. There's without it. And then with it, you know, it just helps to bring the sound to life a little bit, especially when it's something that's really repetitive and droning like this. Having like a slow moving LFO under this can really help when you have this like super fast track happening here. And yeah, and then for effects on this one, I've just got a bit of chorus, a little bit of reverb, so those are giving it some space. We have a saturator to beef it up a little bit, you know, just make it a bit more full, a high pass filter, and then finally I just have this being sidechained to the kick a little. And yeah, that's it for the melody. After that we have this kick, which sounds like this. So with this one, you can hear it has a bit more of like a techie kind of. You know, it's not like that standard drum and bass pattern. It's a little bit different. So what I did here was I just kind of played with the groove. Like we have all this percussion happening. And so I thought doing the usual boonk, boonk would have been kind of boring. So I'm just kind of done some syncopation here, where you can see it's just kind of playing with 16th notes, especially at the end here. And yeah, this can be really cool. I definitely recommend trying like some different kick patterns in the style, because, you know, we've all heard like those tracks where it's just boonk, boonk, boonk. You know, that's cool, but it definitely adds something to it when you do something creative like this. So yeah, just kind of playing with different 16th notes, and then just making sure it doesn't clash with anything else that's happening, you know. You know, like for example, we have these little ghost snares happening. You know, I'm not going to have the kick hitting on the same hit as one of those, but it can kind of play off of one of those where, like, you can hear. So yeah, and then with the sound, you know, it's just this, like, fat, kind of shorter kick like this, like you would use in drum and bass. I've got a bit of saturation on it. And yeah, after that we have the bass line, which sounds like this. So here are the notes. I already pretty much showed you this when I showed you the pad. But yeah, the thing with this one that I think is interesting is, one, it's happening very slowly. So as you can see, like, each chord is pretty much playing for 2 bars. Like, if you count this G as its own chord, I'm just looking at that as like a little extra sort of note there. But it's really just E and C, and each one holds out for 2 bars. Like, there's very few other styles of music where you would just have one chord hold out for 2 bars like this and have it not get boring. But because everything else is happening so quickly, I look at it as like everything else is happening double time, but then the bass is happening half time. Because the bass is kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4, but then everything else is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So yeah, like, you know, just kind of thinking about it like that. And also the sort of stop and start dynamic I think is good. Like, we have this hitting like, you know, it hits on the snare, so you get this kind of like synergy between the different elements now, because you get that open kick, and then as soon as you hear this powerful, you're also getting this fat bass note. So it's like, you know, thinking of it in terms of that as well, and just sort of like, you know, doing stuff to keep it interesting, because you could just have these long held out notes, but I think it's a lot more interesting this way. For the sound with this one, it's a pretty simple reese bass sort of sound. This is typically the type of bass you want to use in the style of drum and bass. So what it is to make a reese bass is it's just 2 saw waves detuned. That's literally all it is. And then typically people will also put a low pass filter on it, especially with this style where it's deeper. So here's without the filter. You just get like this big, huge, fat bass note. And then we're just low passing it, so it's just like a deep, subby bass. And yeah, we got the amp envelope set like that. I've got a bit of unison as well. That helps with the detune and making it bigger. Then we just have a bit of drum bus to fatten it up. I have an EQ8, which is cutting at 100 Hz, making a bit of room for the kick and boosting the lows. And then finally, just a compressor side chaining into the kick. This one's pretty heavy because, you know, you really got to make the low end work between the kick and bass. So I side chain the bass a little bit heavier than I side chain everything else. Yeah, and then on the group of those, I just have a bit of saturation. This is just sort of gluing these together and making them hit a bit more. Here's without it. And then with this, you can hear it just gives it that last little like punch that it needs. Yeah, after that we have the snare, which sounds like this. So this snare just kind of sits on its own. I don't have it in any of these groups because I have the hi-hats grouped together with the kick and bass grouped together, but the snare just kind of sounded best on its own. And with the snare, it's more so about the type of sound you choose. You know, you just want one of these really fast, hard-hitting rim shots like this. And, you know, nothing too long, nothing too, like, you don't want to put delay on it or anything. Just like a quick, like that. Just super hard-hitting. I've got a bit of saturation on it to make it hit a bit more. Here's without that. And then with it. And yeah, that's it for the snare. After that, we have the hi-hats, which altogether sound like this. So really, you could call this like the hi-hat / percussion, but it's basically, yeah, just all that percussion in a group. So I'll just kind of go through the layers here from like the main ones to the last ones, I guess. So the first one we have here will be this closed hi-hat. So this is just going, you can see it's playing 8th notes, and then I have the velocity down. This is pretty popular. Like, a lot of times, you know, when you hear the beginning of a track, it'll be like, yeah, something like that. Like, that'll be the intro. So yeah, that hi-hat is the first thing, and that's one that you may not even really be able to hear right off the bat if your ears aren't tuned for it. But this is adding a lot of energy. The reason why is because having something just go just adds a lot of energy to your track in general. Like, just having that constant 8th note. If I turn this off, you can hear it does not have nearly as much like drive. So that's the first layer. Then we have a tambourine loop, which sounds like this. So what this is it's just this like kind of fast tambourine loop here. And then what I've done is I've just pitched it up a little bit, and then I'm just looping that first quarter note, so it's like. So this is the second thing that's adding a lot of energy here. It's that closed hi-hat and then this tambourine, because you have the closed hi-hat is a little bit darker, and that's just doing the 8th notes. But then this tambourine is giving you the, which that's like, you know, if I turn that off. Then when we turn that on, all the energy comes back. So yeah, and then the next layer that we've got, which is the last sort of like main one that's playing the whole way through, is this ride, which sounds like this. So now we have 3 different rhythms happening. We have 8th notes, we have 16th notes, and then this ride is doing some half notes. So this is the thing, it's not just about the fact that we have a ride in here, it's the fact that we have these 3 sort of like main elements playing off of each other. You know, because if we just have the ride on its own, it's going to feel a bit empty, and same deal. Basically, we take out any of these. So that's the thing. You want to have, like, it's not just about having, like, the hi-hats or having a tambourine loop. It's about having different things that are doing, like, different counts. Like, one's doing 8th notes, one's doing 16ths, one's doing half notes. That's what's going to add the intensity and the complexity to your beats. So yeah, we just got this one here. I've got it being high passed quite a bit. Usually you wouldn't want to have all that low end and mid range in there. This is just kind of sitting in the highs. And yeah, so then for other layers we have here, we have like this shaker and this 808 ride. So these are sort of like the more, I guess you could say, background elements. All of these could kind of be considered background elements. But I'd say these are the things that like you really probably aren't going to always notice right away, but you're definitely hearing them, and they're adding a lot of energy, because essentially if we just have these ones like, you know, it's just kind of that same thing repeated over and over. But these give us something to kind of break it up, because we're getting like this, like a little so, you know, just having something subtle like that, like on some of those little eighth notes, can really help. Yeah, so with this one, it's just like a shaker sample. And then this one, which is actually an 808 ride reverse. So here's the original sample. You can hear just your standard 808 ride. And then I've got it being reversed here. So we kind of get like a with the kick, or with the clap there. Snare. So again, this goes back to what I was saying before, like when I was saying, like, you know, putting the bass note and the snare on the same hit. It's not just musical, it's also kind of for how it fits together, like in terms of impact. Same deal with this, you know, we could put this like here, and that would sound cool for a different effect, but here we have it because it's meant to be like to make that second snare feel a little bit more alive. And then the last sort of like hi-hat percussion layer we have is these little ghost snares, which sound like this. I'll play them with the hi-hat. So these are just some like kind of small snare samples. And then those are just playing some extra little, you know, like those little extra 16th note hits here and there, just to kind of give it a little bit more energy and a little bit more groove. And then on the group of all that, I have these two EQs and then a bit of drum bus. So the drum bus is what's gluing this all together, making it, you know, hit nicely. Here's without it. And with it, you can hear everything's hitting hard and everything sounds a lot more full as well. And we really don't even need to have that much, but just this little bit goes a long way. And then the EQs are just cutting out the low end. So this is why I like putting all these kind of like, you know, high end layers in a group together, because we can cut out quite a bit of low end and then keep those highs pristine without having like, you know, the nasty low end that you would sometimes get. And so that's why we have two EQs. The idea is you put one into the drum bus, and then, like, if we didn't have this, essentially what would happen is all those low-end frequencies would get distorted and saturated on top of, like, our sounds that we want to come through. So, if you just cut it out going into the drum bus, you can get rid of that and keep the low end intact, or keep the highs intact, without having the lows, you know, mudding it up so much. And then the one afterwards is just to make sure that it's all getting cut out. And I'll show you, like, if I turn this off, you can see how there is like some low end in there. It's not a lot, but what's gonna happen is then it's gonna go through the drum bus and it's gonna be like really audible. Even if you cut it out at the end, it's still gonna make it distort more. This is just giving you more headroom for the high frequencies, so that drum bus can make them hit even harder. It's a good technique. But yeah, so that is me for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. I wanted to try making more videos lately where I'm not just like, here's how to make something in the style of this artist, but this is more my style. Like, honestly, if I was releasing drum and bass tracks, this is the type of track I would want to make, because this is what I like. And I think it's very interesting that I can bring that to you guys, and, you know, you guys seem to like this stuff as well. And it's not just about like, oh, here's how to make something like this artist, but it's more like we're connecting because we both are interested in how to make this type of music. So yeah, definitely let me know what you think of this one in the comments. And like I said in the beginning, you can get the full project file and samples and MIDI presets, everything from this video. It's all available right at the top of the description. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.